So I think I finally decided to share my story fully. Most of the time now, people see me, pretty well put together, happy, bubbly, sometimes emotional. I put on a brave face. I seem like I'm put together. What they don't see is the constant battles that I have had to deal with my entire life. I grew up in a war zone and have lived in a war zone my entire life. And not just in my outside surroundings, in my own head. Just trying to recover from even all the trauma that I've experienced. The first traumatic experience that I remember, I want to say 2 or 3. We were living in an apartment complex, and there were some older boys in an apartment a couple doors down that their parents would babysit me and my brother. And let's just say that I was hanging out in the bedroom with the 3 older boys, and they wanted to play house. But like real mom and dads do. By the time my mom got there, I was fully unclothed, and she freaked out. And all their parents could say was, oh, they're just boys being boys. And I remember getting home and being terrified of my dad because I knew how angry he would get, and not knowing if he was going to hurt me or someone else. I was grateful that he didn't hurt me, but I still cowered as soon as he started yelling, because it was an automatic response. That was my everyday life. I never knew which side of my father I was going to get. My mom was the one that had to work because my dad could not keep a job. He was a liar. He was a thief. And he would steal tools and other things from the people he would work for to pawn them off so he could come up with money to buy drugs. And then he would come home and use said drugs in our living room. When he was high, he was really fun to be around. He would play with us. He was really nice. It was when he was coming off of them, we would try to hide. That was the worst thing we could have done. That made him even more mad. And of course, my mom was always at work when it happened. CPS, I was scared to admit to them what actually would happen in our home, because I didn't want to be separated from my brother. And I was scared, even at the age of 5, to go into a house where I would potentially be treated even worse than by my own dad. By the age of 5, I was making alcoholic drinks specific to the way that my dad preferred them. He preferred 7-7s, and I knew how to make them specifically the way he asked them for them to be made. I was always scared to, when he had friends come over, because they would creep me out. I would always try to find a way to get out of the house. I didn't even care if I was just walking around the neighborhood or going down the street to the park, even though it was like 30 degrees outside. Or just, I didn't care as long as I was not in that house. And usually my brother was with me. We were safer being gone than we were being inside that house. A lot of the people he hung out with, even though I was 5 or 6 years old, I felt like they were going to hurt me. And my mom had no idea how bad it actually was. And I was punished for talking back to him. I was punished for trying to voice my opinions on anything, so I learned to just shut up and be quiet. I learned that my voice was a tool to get me into trouble, so I stopped using it. I'm missing most of my life. I blocked out and erased. Subconsciously, I erased most of my life from my memory because it was the only way to survive. I went to Oregon and saw Keiko in person. I don't remember it except for the videos that they took on a camcorder. I hardly remember any of the trips that we took as a kid. And we would go camping all the time. We would travel to Idaho all the time. I hardly remember any of it. I hardly remember any of the times that I actually went to my grandparents' house. But I do remember the beatings. I remember being burned by hot water when I was 7 years old so bad, and having to have my mom wipe the dead skin off of me in the hospital because a nurse wouldn't do it. And then I forget after that, even though I know that they had to drive me to a completely different hospital that had a burn unit. I don't remember that. I hardly remember going, even though we had to go to that burn center multiple times over the next year. I don't remember any of those except for that Christmas. They actually gave me a gift under the tree. But other than that, I don't remember. I have very few good memories of my childhood. I remember going to the racetrack and watching the cars go around and actually getting to ride in the race cars a couple of times. I remember making popcorn balls with my grandpa and doing wishbones out of the turkey. And making peanut butter M&M cookies with him. I also remember watching him slowly die from brain cancer. I remember being taken away from all of my family. I remember not being able to see my grandparents for 2 years. And they were the only people that were there trying to protect me. I also remember being sexually assaulted by my own father by the time I was 9 years old. And then not being believed for 20 years about that said assault. Just because there was no penetration. But those kinds of images are burned into your memory and you can never forget them. They ruin your ability to have any kind of intimacy with anybody. I also, remember being abandoned, going to oh my gosh, I can't remember how old I was. My brother and my parents took me 3-4 hours away to my great aunt's house for the weekend and left us there for 2 weeks. I remember every single day, every time the phone rang, getting excited, wondering if it was them calling. Just to see the look on my aunt's face and knowing it wasn't them. Every time I'd hear a car come down the road and running to the front window to see if it was their car. And it wasn't. Having to wash those same set of clothes over and over again for 2 weeks. Do you know what that does to a kid? Not knowing if you're ever going to see your parents again. And my aunt had no idea if they were coming back either. Just there's so much more that I really don't necessarily have the time to unpack. But I've been doing therapy for over 20 years. I was so grateful the day that my mom finally left my dad. But having to go through the trauma of being completely and utterly terrified of having to tell the court system over and over again and reliving the trauma of the sexual assault to them. From the age of 9 to the age of 13, just to freaking have the charges stick against him. For him to finally be registered as a sex offender. Oh my gosh, that was so hard. And they wanted me to testify against him in court. I couldn't do it. He groomed me and just had manipulated me and just controlled me and beat me so much I was terrified to even stand up to him in court, to face him, because I was still scared that he would still find a way to hurt me, even though he was in prison. Over time, I finally was able to forgive him. But then there comes the frustration with getting angry with my mom for not believing me, and then ignoring me and neglecting me to take care of my younger siblings, and then putting so much pressure on me to be the second parent in the house, while I'm trying to deal with just being a kid. And I didn't know how to be a kid. I was barely surviving. And I didn't know how to even communicate how I was feeling. I didn't know what some of the feelings I was feeling were, let alone how to put words to what I was going through. It took me being in therapy with my current therapist for 10 years. For 10 years. And doing so much hard work with her to be able to even get to this point. And a lot of it I've done in the last 2 years alone, 2.5 years. And I have had so many meltdowns and breakthroughs and screaming fits. It's been so rough. Keep in mind, I've been doing all of this while raising my 2 kids. And nobody knew what I was dealing with. Because I didn't know how to tell them. And every time I would try to open up to somebody, they just wouldn't understand. I have literally been living in survival mode my whole life. And now people are wondering how I've literally gone through as much as I have. Let alone how I'm functioning. And I don't even have an answer for them. Other than God has literally helped me through every step of the way. He has literally been the only one that has been there for me through every step of this process. Even when I was a child. Through some of the darkest days I actually had angels come visit me to try and comfort me and tell me that, yeah, it sucks right now, but one day it won't be this bad, and you will have a very blessed life. But after getting out of all of the traumatic experience of dealing with my dad, I've had a couple of good relationships with men, but I didn't feel worthy of them because of how broken I was and how traumatized I was. I went through horrible relationships with men, and I learned a lot from them to realize, no, I don't deserve that either. It's just in trying to figure out where I do fit. I'm too religious for the normal world, and I'm too broken for the church world. I've always been too broken for anywhere. And I got bullied for it because I didn't fit in. I didn't have like a computer in the house growing up. I didn't have new clothes or name brand anything. Still don't. And I don't care. I would rather be comfortable, save money, and spend the money on. I'd actually just prefer saving the money for a change. Tired of living off of tired of just surviving. I would actually like to have money in the savings account for a change. And actually be thriving. But over the last few years, I've been learning how to take care of my family. I have so many different talents and skills because I've always felt so socially awkward. Because I felt like I couldn't let anybody in. Because I have a hard time trusting people. Because every time I've let anybody get too close, I get hurt. Or I have to cut people out because they just do something stupid. Or they say something stupid that just hurts so bad that it's unforgivable. Even if they know that what they did was totally against my boundaries and, sorry, I'm fighting a cold. I've learned that boundaries are important. And I've also learned that I can't keep everybody at a distance. I have to let people in, and sometimes that includes taking the heartbreaks along with it. Because you can't have the joy without the heartbreak. And yeah, it sucks, but you know what? So the joy is so much better. And they kind of go both in hand, but you can't experience the joy without having the heartbreak too. And sometimes the best things in life are worth risking. And if you don't take that leap, you'd never know. And quite frankly, I've given up so much in my life. I'd rather take the risk to find out because I don't want to take those sacrifices anymore. I've lived so much of my life in fear. The fear of making the wrong decision, of putting myself in harm's way because I didn't want to get myself hurt or risk putting myself in harm's way because I was at the disposal of somebody else. I knew that if I made one tiny mistake, I would get hurt. And I lived even the good portion of my adult life that way because I was still afraid of that. Because of that brainwashing. I have learned now I don't have to live that way anymore. I am finally at a point where I can make decisions for myself. And I am not weighed down. I feel free. My situation really sucks. It really sucks. But it could be so much worse. It could be so much worse. It's not. But I get up every day knowing that the Lord has my back. I am making the right decisions for me and my kids. And by kids, I mean dog too. He is my baby just as much as my kids are. And they just bring me so much joy. This morning, I made my son a bagel. Yes, I'm going to tell the story because it's important to me. I made him a bagel, and he could have sat at the table and ate it by himself, but he refused to sit down and eat it because I wasn't at the table with him. He waited for me to make my breakfast and join him at the table, and we said a prayer together, and we ate together. And I'm so grateful for that he had. Keep in mind, he's only 3. His dad doesn't even do this. And I am so grateful, so very grateful that he did that. Because it shows me that he does love me and that he thinks about me and he cares about me, and it's not just about him and his needs, but that he wants that time with me, and that I am wanted, and that that my efforts are not in vain. And it tells me that I am doing a good job. The last year has been so hard with taking care of him mostly by my own, because their dad is not around very much. But they are so much happier. And so am I. And it has made a huge difference with our mental health, and even the way we treat each other and our relationships with one another. I feel so grateful with the changes that have occurred with both of my kids this last year, and even with myself. And knowing that I took that back, knowing where I was a year ago and feeling like a shell of a person, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more grateful. And I know I couldn't be here without my Heavenly Father. And I have made so many huge strides this year alone in my healing. And it's been showing up in a lot of weird ways. I've had complex migraines, which I've learned can actually be a side effect of recovering from severe trauma. And just since the beginning of October, I've been having unexpected seizures, I think but they're non-epileptic seizures, which they think might be because of the migraines, which randomly just started happening. But I'd also been under a lot of stress and also dealing with a lot of healing at that point too. So I have to go back into neurology and figure that out. But I just want to let whoever is watching this know that if I can go through all of the trauma and heartache and betrayals and everything that I've gone through within the abuse from my father, sorry mom, the neglect from my mother because of her being a single parent and healing herself and going through hard relationships herself, and dealing with my couple of crazy siblings and just trying so hard to figure life out on her own. I understand that. I respect that, and I understand that. I'm not blaming her. I understand where she's coming from now as I'm going through a kind of similar situation. It took me going through a similar situation to understand it a little bit more. But it's... And then also going through very challenging, relationships myself and losing myself along the way. And now I'm trying to recover and heal myself, as well as trying to recover and heal the relationships I have with my kids and other people. I just want you to know that if I can do all of this myself with Heavenly Father's help, and even random angels that God has sent my way over a prayer. One friend from church actually brought me sunflowers one time because I asked Heavenly Father to just send me flowers because I couldn't buy them myself. And she showed up with sunflowers. I was like, girl, you have no idea. I was like, you just answered one of my prayers. And she was like, no way. If you need a sign to let you know that Heavenly Father is there, ask for something specific. He will show you. He is listening. You are not alone. And sometimes, even in your darkest of days, when you feel like He's not there and you need help, just even if all the strength you have, and all you can manage to say is, help me. If you feel it in your heart and that's all you can say, He will be there for you. And sometimes it takes getting to those darkest days of despair for you to pour your heart out, to release those negative emotions, for you to free yourself from those bonds. Then do it. I promise you, you will feel so much better afterwards. I promise you will feel better. It's not a one day and you're done kind of thing. It's going to take effort. It is going to be a conscious choice on a day-to-day basis. And you have the power to make that choice every single day. The power is yours. You have the power to choose your actions. You have the power to choose love or destruction. We all have that choice. And sometimes the hardest choice is choosing it within yourself. You can either, in the words of Riki, you can either learn from it, you can either run from it or you can learn from it. I chose to learn from it every single time. Every single time. Even though it hurt a lot. A lot. But a long time ago, instead of running from those inner demons and those monsters and those fears, I chose to embrace them because they are a part of who I am. They are what make me powerful. And they are what will help me help everybody else I come across to help them in their own journey. They're not just my journey, they're yours too. And that's why I'm here, is to help you guys heal too. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone through everything I've gone through for no reason. But know that sometimes the hardest things we go through in life can be the biggest blessings. The biggest blessings, for sure. And sometimes in the Bible, the way that it is phrased is sometimes it's our wilderness, our periods of darkness, and then our wilderness. And then God will call you out of your wilderness so that way you can be the prophet to his people and lead the way. I'm not calling myself a prophet by any means. I'm not. Just wanting to help be a healer. Because I know I'm not alone, especially in these days. There's a lot of healing that needs to go on. Let me help heal you. How can I help? How can I pray for you today? Let me help pray for you. Let me know in the comments. I love you guys, and I wouldn't share this with you if there wasn't a need to. Just know that you're not alone. Right. Well, have a beautiful day. Sorry if I made you cry with my crying, and honestly, it's healing on its own. Anyways, have a good day. Bye.